All right, good Tuesday evening, everybody. It's July 16th, 2024, here at PreciseAlgorithmTrading.com. And it was a good day today. Continuation of a lot of things, and really not too much that's really broken. So let's take a look at the markets. Let's start here. I'm going to hit the automated trading systems just a couple times a week, so that it's not something I have to, like, this equity curve doesn't change that much really over time. So we just want it to keep going up. Which, look at that, the Dow actually today, um, the the Dow went up over 700 points, and there was a big piece of it where our automated trading system caught that, which is pretty cool. So this is the Dow futures, and that spike there, I believe, is all today. So we had, yeah, just one trade, and it was a whopper. And this is the Russell, which it had a trade too that was a good one. And we'll take a look at that. It had two trades, one stop out and one decent trade. And let's not forget the green dots are the equity peaks. So that's when the equity is going up. The Nasdaq pulled back a little today, which that kind of tracks with what happened in the overall markets. And but what's really cool about it is we had a lot of stop outs today, but nothing that the Dow didn't take care of. So that's basically why we do diversification amongst these trading systems. All right, the overall markets were very bullish today. Well, I shouldn't say that because the Nasdaq actually is the one that pulled back. But really, what we've got going on is the let's start at the top and look at the S&P here, which let's pull up. Well, the S&P went up 35 points, or 0.64%, almost 36 points. The Dow went up 742 points, 1.85%. That's the futures for the Dow. Pretty much a straight up type move. And I just want to make sure everybody sees, or call your attention to the monthly chart over here, which is it's the driver. We can uh, pontificate all we want on what is happening and what's driving this buying. It could be a bunch of shorts that are getting run over, but if you look at the overall monthly chart, I mean, it's been bullish, and everything is keyed that way. So, um, and all of our trading system here on the daily is right in line as well. So, um, the Russell has been a good story as well. So the Russell is going straight up, and let's look at IWM. That's the ETF for the Russell, which I actually had an option on the other day that I took off, or I shouldn't say that I took off. It automatically took itself off at 50%, and then the other one I had on took itself off at 100% today. And we're still really just squeeze fired long, 1, 2, 3, 4 bars in, and this could still have a couple more days left in it of going higher. We could get a pullback and then that finishing, but if you look at how that generally, I shouldn't say, I mean, this wasn't a squeeze, but when you get that bullish momentum, you get a lot of bars in a row usually, and then you start looking for a dark blue bar. And here was a squeeze that fired along that went, I don't know, that's probably a dozen or so bars up. And that's kind of what we're seeing now, but we also have the monthly squeeze that's in play over here. It's fired this month, and this month's not over yet, so we can't act like that's a done deal. But if we look at the weekly, if I flip this to weekly, that's a weekly fired long, and this week's not done yet either, but I'm guessing that's not going to give it all back by the end of the week. So, not that it can't, but again, I put these targets on here for a reason. They literally are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 times the risk if this thing was to close back, in a red candle situation. on the monthly chart, and that's not the same color bars that I have on the right hand side. The color bars on the right hand side are more because of the daily action. So it's you got to watch both together, and you don't have to. That's what I do. So anyway, that's the IWM. And look at that target. I just noticed. I drew that target in. You know, I'm going to say weeks, maybe even weeks and weeks ago. Well, back here, probably when it was about here. So middle of May, sometime, and now it's the middle of July, and we're getting close to that target. It's not that far away. So it's fascinating to me how that can work. Anyway, that's the Russell, and when the Russell's going higher, it's a interesting thing because Russell stocks are, I mean, if the institutional money is driving this, almost guaranteed, and if institutions are buying the Russell, well, that's a kind of a risk-off move. So I also have another theory that I've heard in the past, which is basically all this inflation that's been going on, the stocks have to catch up because just because, well, you know, if your groceries went up 20%, then the price of Apple should have just gone up 20%, but it just doesn't do it in a straight line. So, you know, the price of anything, the stocks are the same. So, and it makes a ton of sense. But anyways, let's move on. That was the S&P, the Dow, and the Russell. Now let's look at the Nasdaq, which actually is in this kind of triangle pattern right now on the daily chart, sideways, and the Nasdaq today went up 36 points, even though it didn't look that bullish in the scheme of things. And if we look at some stocks like Nvidia, I mean, it's in a little bit, it's that same kind of triangle pattern. If we look at Google, that's a red candle. We got earnings coming up in a lot of these in a couple days. Apple, Microsoft. So these things have been in pullback situation, and that makes sense. So really what's pretty cool is that these are all pulling back. There's been some broader participation in the markets. So that's that. Let's go to oil real quick, which is in a pullback situation, and it's at basically a point where, you know, we have to make a decision whether we stay in or get out, and I'm looking for it to actually pull back here and then go higher. And you could say why? Well, I've got a bullish future cloud, and we're at, you know, basically we have all of these moving averages pretty well stacked up like they're supposed to be. And but that doesn't mean I'm not just gonna take it on the chin and continue to, you know, be abused to the downside. You can always get out and get back in again. I'm probably going to give it one more day. So just thinking out loud there, but you know, if you look here at the monthly chart, it's got a lot of potential, and we are also in a squeeze. All right, that's oil. Gold, GLD, is going higher and broke this zone up here. So nothing. I mean, and that's a squeeze fired along, and it's I don't know, 8 bars in probably, thereabouts. All right, what else we got? Let's look at Coinbase. Is actually pretty bullish, except it's got a earnings in a couple, you know, a few days, and so I won't be jumping on board with that. This is Bitcoin, or one of the Bitcoin ETFs, and that's looking fairly strong actually. BitO, which, you know, it's against the trend at this point, so not a trade I want to take, and that's enough to take a look at. Yeah, good enough. The VIX, let's take a look at the VIX because we haven't in a few days. So this is the S&P on the right hand side, and the VIX is in a pretty well sideways move, although we're up against the upper Bollinger Band at this point. So, and the Bollinger Bands are inside the Keltner channels, which means that the VIX is in a squeeze. And so when this thing releases, it's going to be also very interesting. Let's look at it on a chart. Yeah, so there's the VIX on a chart with the squeeze, and these signals won't exactly be the same as what a regular stock chart looks like, but they do matter. And you can see like the green arrows can shoot the VIX up pretty good, and we got a green arrow just the other day. So I'm not saying this thing's going to pull back hard yet, because I think it's got the weekly chart and the monthly chart behind it. I should say the overall market, and the fact that the Russell stocks are in play. And again, that means that generally the markets are a risk-off trade right now, which is really good if you're bullish the market. And finally, the bullish percent indexes. Let's keep an eye on them. So the industrials didn't move on a day when the industrials, the actual market went up 700 points. Let's go back to that for what it's worth. So the Dow actually today went up 742 points, or 1.85%, to get to 40,954. We're almost at 41,000 Dow. So that's exciting if you care about such things. The NYA tacked on 2 new X's today, up 5.82%. The transportation index is ripping higher, and that's a bullish point and figure buy signal, up 9%. We should have looked at IYT while we're here. All right, IYT is a trade that looks like it's in transition to me from bearish to bullish. Now that it's up like this, I'm going to wait for a pullback, and these moving averages have to cross, and then all this stuff can be in play, and I will go long. And that's a monthly buy signal as far as I'm concerned. But a lot of potential for a pullback, at least to the middle, which is all the way down to here. So yeah, that's how I'll decide to play that if and when the time comes. In fact, I'm going to put an alert on it. Alright, let's go back here. Sorry to be jumping around, but that's how I do my homework. That was the transports. The NASDAQ tacked on a new X today, up 4.35%. The S&P 500, 2 new X's, up 4.7%. The S&P 100, down 2.99%. That kind of makes sense with the high flyers that are pulling back right now. And the NASDAQ 100 didn't move. So, pretty interesting markets these days, and we'll catch you next time. Take care, guys. Have a good night.